Football on the field is only 3 weeks away. Of course, Florida State on the field for real sooner than anybody in college football with the Dublin game against Georgia Tech on August 24th, ACC kickoff for you folks that like to hear the pinnacle of talking season. And we will talk about all of it here on Florida State Seminoles Live for the next hour. Big game James Coleman is here from Den Media Group. And leave those comments and questions there in the chat. Please consider the super chat option as well. James, what's going on today?
Trying to stay dry up here in Jacksonville. Just started raining. That time of year where it rains every day for about 2 hours, and then it's hot again. Then you get steamed like you're in a crab pot.
Yeah, so I'm getting a taste of that for the first time. I'm just about 90 minutes south of you. So, yeah, it's been nice and wet down here today and for the last couple of days. But I told my kids the other day, I said, aside from these days, and so this has just shown up here with the storms here in the last week, at least for us here. But I told them I've experienced basically 2 days. So living in Connecticut and Ohio for the last, it can be 65 one day and 40 the next day. It can fluctuate 25, 30 degrees like it's nothing. But living down here, I've told them I've experienced pretty much 2 days. I said from the first week of March for about 2 months, it was about 75 and sunny every day. And the humidity wasn't bad. It's perfect. And then I said, once it got hot in a hurry, and even more than hot, humid. I said that the heat, it's actually, I keep checking back in Ohio, and it's not that much hotter here. It's just the humidity is through the roof. But
humidity is crazy.
I knew that coming down. So I've had a good time. I'm glad I made the move. James, you getting your what's going on with your football coaching duties these days?
We got 2 of our big 3 committed. They Tramel Jones Jr. He's obviously committed to Florida State. Our safety Hilton Drake Stubbs committed to Miami. Getting a really good one right there. Like that is like that kid is dynamic. Might be one of our best players. And then August 30th is when the last one of our big 3, Jamie French, the 5-star wide receiver, he'll commit. He'll commit between Texas, LSU, Miami, and Tennessee. I believe those are the 4 schools that he's between. So,
do you have any decent leans on either one of these? Got a feel for it?
I think it's Texas, but Miami fans, you never know. He may want to stay in the state of Florida or stay closer. And then, Georgia fans, you might be able to, if you guys can keep working and they can sneak a visit in, you never know what's going to happen when it comes to that as well. But Jamie's keeping it pretty close to the vest. You're going to use the button.
Got a safety in Max Redman who just committed for 2025, 64 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks, West Palm Beach, Florida. Doesn't necessarily look to be a prospect that's going to come in and contribute right away, but developmental player, and he makes the choice for Florida State. Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, he's what you want to do with guys like that, smaller school, really athletic, plays basketball as well. One of those guys that kind of freaks the net, does it like a dunk, do all the different things that you want him to do. You bring him in and you actually develop him where he plays both sides of the ball. So he's I think I saw somewhere where he averages like 110 plays a game. So he's playing a tremendous amount of football, and he's that good to his team. I think he's probably a little bit better than the 3-star ranking that he gets. I'm gonna be honest with you. I went on a rant the other day. I have no idea how they make their rankings because a guy can perform all summer and go to all your camps and be one of the top people and then drop spots. So I have no idea how they do that. But this kid right here is somebody that I think, with Pat Surtain and he has a type. When they recruit these guys, I try not to give them too much flack about if they're blue chip or not, because I've seen what the results are on the field. So, and again, he reminds me a little bit of a Shaheem Brown. Shaheem Brown is going to probably be one of our better players this year on the defense. and he was a 3-star as well when he came into Florida State. So I'm excited about Max. Be honest with you, I get my Mandarin bias. Wish we would have went after Drake Stubbs a little bit harder, but at the same time, I'm not. This kid is not chopped liver either.
All right, George is stopping by. Of course, we appreciate George, the Renegade Report. What's going on today, George?
Running a few minutes behind today, but we made it in just
That's
under
all right.
time. What's going on, fellas? Talking a little Max Redman, I take it.
We are. We're doing it. Got anything to chip in?
Yeah, just to add on a little bit to what James said, this is one where when you've signed 10 blue chips in a row, you know, people are going to pick it apart. They're going to say, oh, well, it's a 3-star. They're going to find any excuse why any number of players he could have signed over them. And you heard it from James. I would have loved to have gotten Drake Stubbs. There's the kid Ladarian Clarity who we're after, who it's looking like could end up being at Ole Miss because some other names we're after. Like at the end of the day, there's still like 6 guys on a DB board, and there's only like 2 spots left. So at the end of the day, I trust Patrick Surtain, you know, to get who he wants in here. His track record in a short time has been pretty amazing. And when you look at Redmond, 6'2", 190 pounds, just a guy to lay the hat out there at the safety position. You got to just appreciate it. A good addition to the room. Not the sexiest, you know, most exciting thing we'll get. And I'm sure we'll probably get a couple blue chip DBs down the line. But welcome to Tribe 25. I love it.
We got together everyone last week and mixed it up on the recruiting front because Chris Frazier in particular, our buddy from Spear Addicts, wasn't real pleased with some recruiting efforts recently with a couple of linebackers getting away. So check out last week's show. And of course, George and Chris and James are all over the recruiting every day. So again, the Renegade Report, Den Media Group as well. Has anything happened in the last week? Not necessarily in regards to commits because we just picked off the one here, the safety, but going forward that you're going to be keeping your eye out for?
You know, right now you have Josh Petty and Ty Haywood are 2 guys across the offensive line that you're going to be looking toward their recruitments. Obviously, those are guys that everybody's coveting, really big-time prospects. Got to keep pushing toward. You sign those 2, you're going to probably have one of the better offensive line classes in the nation. You also have Byron Lewis, and I just said Ozempic, but I know that's not his name. I have no idea how to say his name, but he's from out of Georgia.
Usman Chroma.
There we go. Usman Chroma. Really good running back. But you got, again, that's 4 guys right there on offense. You get those, and then you completely change, as well as another wide receiver prospect that we're looking in. Dalen McCutcheons is somebody that we're trying to get. So those 5 guys are, if you get those 5 guys, or even if you get 4 of those 5 guys, you're really happy with the offense. They'll probably go reevaluate their board, see where they need to go pick up somebody if there's another high school prospect that fits what it is that they do. Or if it's just, you know, hit the transfer portal in the offseason. You go into defense, you're going to probably get 2 more D linemen to round out that class. You've got to. Then you've got linebacker. There's a couple guys that we're going to try to continue to flip, really. But with Tavion Wallace, who just committed to Arkansas, you're going to continue to try to keep pushing to get him to flip back from Arkansas to Florida State. That recruitment, I believe, should go down to the end. And then what George just talked about, you got Clarity, aka Squirrel, but it is looking like he's going to be an Ole Miss lean, along with is it Onus, which we joke to call, he's British. They call him Snowfall after a British black actor here in the States on a show called Snowfall. You have him, and I think there's some guys that they'll continue to pick up there. But our board, they're pretty high on bringing in high caliber players to raise the floor, and then they're going to attack how they normally attack. I saw a colleague, Chris Nee, say he thinks that this class will be between 15 and 20. I doubt very seriously we'll be on the 15 end, I believe. But if 19 is what we've signed the last 2 years, I believe. So, but I do believe that this class will be between 20 and 25 signees. So,
yeah, I'm in the same range. Like, you can maybe put 15, 16 guys down on chalk right now, but those extra 3 or 4 guys, whether it's a flip or whether it's somebody they're recruiting on the down low, I think that'll take care of it. I think we actually signed a little bit more than normal last year, but I totally agree with James. Somewhere in that, 18 to 22, 23 range is where it'll probably end up. A couple guys that we haven't mentioned between the two of us, Ty Jackson. He's the number 1 linebacker, I think, according to On3. The 2-4 composite has him at like number 14, 6'1", 200 pounds. I mean, he's just what Randy Shannon wants. Not trying to get our hopes up. We've seen this thing where all of a sudden, oh yeah, Florida State's my new leader, when they haven't really been in it for all this time, and you never end up getting the kid. He was just kind of using it for leverage for other schools, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that's this situation, but it seems like they are making a concerted push at Ty Jackson. So if you could get him or flip Tavian Wallace, that's one of the beautiful things about Randy Shannon's position that he's in. You don't need 10 linebackers in the class. You've already got Pritchard. If you can get this guy, shit, everything, the mob calms down, everything's going to be all right. So we'll see what happens there. Also, another name that we got a date on recently is another one of those DBs with the nicknames. We call him Boosie. His name's Jabori Antone out of Louisiana. I don't want to, I keep forgetting the actual place in Louisiana, so I won't mess it up. But he's from a parish over there. Going to be choosing between, I think, LSU, us, and Miami. James mentioned it. Those SFE kids that Dirk coaches, he's the cornerbacks coach, I believe, or DB coach for SFE 7-on-7. He's been throwing a lot of hints between FSU and Miami with those guys. So we're going to see who gets who, but yeah, definitely a lot of fun watching recruiting, and we'll see what happens. But there's plenty of smoke, plenty of fireworks still to be had, and super excited for it.
I was talking to our guy, Tony Siracusa, this week. We're going to have him on to talk some Wake Forest, but also ACC realignment. And it's been kind of ACC, or I should say realignment month at the Voice of College Football, just to roll out a bunch of different models, different formulas, possibilities out there. So we've looked at the Big Ten plus Notre Dame and Florida State, and again, an ACC without Florida State and Clemson and some of the others, to see if they could possibly survive and pick up some other. So with all that in mind, he had passed along, and I don't know the specifics. Are there a couple key dates coming up this week on that front?
As far as the, I'm sorry, as far as the ACC,
yeah.
Everybody's kind of pushing toward, and then now Clemson's some people have come out and said that they're going to announce that they're out 7-1 July 1st of next year. I think it's at any day now, but the biggest thing that happened last week, and this is toward the end of this week comes into play, is that Florida State filed their petition to have a completely unredacted ESPN television contract agreement, and all things point toward this judge in Tallahassee, Coach. I know Coach Cooper, but actually Coach John Cooper. But all things point towards Judge John Cooper signing this and putting this into effect, which kind of goes back to things that I've been talking about on your show for the last 2 years. That they don't want this to get. They don't want that, because redacted means that the ACC and ESPN can pick and choose what they want to line out. But a full copy, and again, Sunshine State laws or just anything, could be basically us having this information is a huge leg up, and in the process of getting out of the ACC. So I think the writing is on the wall. They're probably going to start negotiating some of these different things, and I think that's the first sign. But Florida State's really doing a lot of different things behind the scenes that show motion toward a major announcement that's non-sports related happening. And I'm not just talking about a new academic logo either, which it's kind of weird that you just dropped the academic logo, but it is what it is.
That is weird. As far as that goes, I go along the same lines as when they changed the original logo. I think people are kind of upset and it's aggravating. But at the end of the whatever, they've got smart people that ran it through a computer program, and it'll make it easier on us graphic designers. So I'm okay with it. But just to piggyback on getting out of the ACC and the dates coming up, and to piggyback on what James said, absolutely. We finally get this discovery. We get to look at these contracts, and the significance of it is not just, okay, we look at the latest version of the contract. No, we get to look at every version of the contract and the different amendments that go in. I believe it's 7 different dates going back to when this all started, as we have tried to intimate James and Chris on this show for 2 years, me for going on a little over a year, whatever it is. There is a lot more to this than just, oh, well, they signed it and they didn't want it. No, the ACC has represented these contracts 3-4 different ways throughout the year since 2010. It was one thing in 2016. It was another in 2021 on the latest amendment. They've said this. We've seen it in court where they did it in court. They tried to represent one term in the contract 3 different ways, and the judge called them out on it. Well, now Florida State is going to have black and white. Just because we don't get it doesn't matter. They get it all unredacted. They're going to be able to say, oh, well, see, look here, look at this. This means this right here, but you said it was this here, and this here to suit your needs. And there's a list of things a million miles long. It goes back to, like, if you've ever watched the TV show Suits, we finally get that. Florida State, Clemson, they're going to get these boxes full of all this stuff, and they get to go through it. So big time stuff. There is a date, I believe July 12th, there's going to be, which is Friday, they're having some kind of hearing in the Clemson trial. I don't want to misspeak. So we're going to have Doug Rowe on Friday to discuss that and everything going on with the latest. But yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of dates. August 15th is another date. If Florida State has to announce their intentions of removing themselves from the ACC, they don't have to announce a destination or anything like that. Just that they will be leaving the ACC by August 15th if they want to be in a different conference by 2025. So that there is another date to watch. And, we can get into it. There's a whole nother conversation to be had about all the rumors swirling. It's been, we've been Big Ten. We've been telling you all the reasons for all this time. The rumors were SEC at the beginning of the week. Now we've got Big 12 rumors here at the end of the week. But, tons of fun. But as we creep closer and closer to football actually starting, people are scrambling to get done what they can.
Okay, so the 2 things that strike me would be when you mention Clemson might make an announcement. Obviously, Florida State was hard at work on this front, far in front of Clemson. So do you guys have any idea why Clemson might be better prepared? Or maybe that's just their tact to go public with this and announce it before Florida State?
I don't really know what it is. I just think I think everybody's jumping the gun a little bit. And that's wild for me to say, because seeing as 2 years have been beating the drum on this. But it's like, for example, now there's people who are saying Florida State's going to the SEC now over the Big Ten. Then there's a guy, I think his name is George Swam or something like that.
Greg, don't give him my name.
He says a lot of things.
I've had him on once.
The Clemson guys are saying some stuff, but I think my opinion has always been this: it will be before football season. I think more so around August. You will hear, definitely not before. It would be crazy if it would be before ACC media days. But I personally think they'll use tact so that that's not the entire talk of ACC media days, or it'll be the talk Tuesday. Because if I remember correctly, and I looked at, because I was supposed to go, and I look at it, I think Florida State comes on Monday, and I think we're out of there after that. So like, they're not going to lead Mike into a situation, and Mike offered both Mikes into situations where that will take away from where the season is going at that juncture. But I do believe that Florida State and Clemson will probably be making similar announcements around the same time.
Yeah,
So
I agree. George. Not too much to add on that. I think it's if Clemson were to go before Florida State, it would just be just a symptom of litigation differences, and the fact that they were able to get their suit off first and be more meticulous and have our suit to go off of, and the way things jump around. As James was saying, it's kind of people are getting out ahead of their skis. You got a lot of people who think they know or just are being full of shit. Again, excuse my French. Like, it's a lot of stuff getting thrown against the wall when you have, very limited options. You've got Big 10, SEC, and you've got Big 12. So it's like everybody's planting their flag, and 1/3 of them are going to be right. But it's, that's what it is. I think there's all kind of conversations going behind doors. You've seen people kind of holler, there are no written offers, yada, yada. And I agree. That's been the thing. That's what the national media has been pounding. But now all of a sudden it's okay to report on the behind the scenes stuff and the handshakes and the setups that's getting on that we've been reporting all this time. And everybody's reporting it like they know. So we'll see. We're going to see. It'll be soon enough. So no need to rush it.
I'll say this. One of the bad things that got to bounce. One of the bad things is of so much reporting that's outside of any kind of context. All right, bring me a ginger ale. Is that people getting this information and are talking about stuff that they have absolutely no idea about. So, like, Florida State's on track to get an AAU status anyway, and you don't have to. There's schools in the Big Ten without the AAU, and Big Ten has came out and said that's not going to stop you from getting into that. And SEC, actually, if anything, SEC is ramping up things to try to compete so that the Big Ten doesn't come into their footprint. Right now, there is no Southern footprint for the Big Ten. This would put them and make them a national thing. And I think it's just a lot of stuff because everybody has harped on the GOR and how impenetrable it was when people were talking. But anybody who's ever dealt with any kind of legal situation understands that there's no such thing as an unbreakable contract. Heck, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are listening to, I'm not putting this on anybody if you haven't, but you want to know what an unpenetrable contract is? One is a marriage contract, and that those get broke every day. Like, that's one of the most breakable contracts that you can actually have, including even if you have a prenup. One thing that I did learn is that if she pays $1 toward a house that you had before you met her, she's entitled to compensation for that house, no matter what you have. So, but again, it just comes down to, somebody wants to leave. That there already is a future date. The thing is do you want to delay the inevitable so that you can't make any moves, or do you allow this to be able to come out to terms that's more palatable to yourself? So, and that's what's going to end up happening, and you're going to see other schools probably flee it. Hopefully, the ACC from an overall perspective of not wanting to have only 2 conferences, even though that's where everything is heading. I hope that the ACC does some things to make sure that they save themselves as a conference, because that's really where their energies need to go. Is how do you save the conference? And saving the conference is not by trying to keep entities that don't have no interest in being there.
Very well said.
But I hate to bolt on you quick, Mark, but I gotta go do this.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
All right, you as well.
That's hashtag MFTK36 if y'all want to donate to the book bag drive that he's got going on. He's trying to get together 4,000 book bags here by quick order. So go check that out for sure.
Absolutely. George, so you said Big 12. So I got to follow up on that.
My God.
Besides our guy, Greg Swaim, when I say our guy, I'm joking to a certain extent. I've had him on one time. He was fine, but I've heard various things about him and his reporting. So besides him, where are we hearing Big 12 from?
So, and it seems like maybe he, along with the kind of other peddlers of the Big 12 news on Twitter, have kind of backtracked now. But especially first thing this morning, I don't know if it's Brett Yormark made a comment that, like, yeah, a couple teams might be leaving the SEC, so we're getting aggressive. We're on the horn, reporting that they've reached out to the 7 schools who aren't happy in the ACC, and these things about they're going to make a run. They're going to make a run to try to, be a Power 3. They're going to try to get Clemson and Florida State if at all possible. There was talk, somebody spoke about, well, it's not crazy. They're already getting close to what the ACC gets now. And if you add FSU and Clemson, you could probably get double what the new ACC payout would be minus Florida State and Clemson. And it's like, how is that even relevant? Like Florida State now, with what they're making, the current $40 million, that's less than half of what they need to compete. Like, so you want to cut that into like damn near half, and then double it and say that's good for the Big 12? Like, why in the world is it like currently as it stands, Big 12 is a lesser than the ACC? Yeah, sure, that's because FSU and Clemson are there, but you subtract them, great, you're better than the ACC now. But you're still the Big 12. Now, where it is retracted to, and people have kind of, after the outrage and all the people like me quote tweeting big piles of poop and all this stuff, they've came out and said, well, it's more the other 5 teams after FSU ends up in the Big 10, Clemson in the SEC, or whatever the case may be, that the Big 12 could look at adding your Louisville's, your North Carolina's, etc. North Carolina, maybe not. They're one of the ones that really has a shot at a Power 2 school now. But that's what it's going to be. Like, I guess I come off as a Big 12 hater, but it's like, I'm not hating, albeit like y'all are smarter. Y'all have done better than the ACC as far as mapping out a future and stuff like that. At least your Mark is trying. He's not just trying to soak the blood out of a dead corpse and just get everything he can out of it, like was going on with Jim Phillips. But like, you just have to have national caliber teams. And once you take away FSU and Clemson, your only shot at that is like a Miami, who they just recruited at a national level. They haven't competed at a national level in 20 years. So who is it that you're going to grab from the ACC that's going to bring you up? It's like Utah. As good as Utah's been lately, they're not in the top 25 of recruiting. Like, they were pretty good in those grueling rivalry matches, but when it came time to take that next step, there's just a difference. I saw somebody say, again, the whole thing of they're going to make a push to the Power 3 or to be that third power conference. Like, sure, okay. If Thanos comes along and snaps away the current top 20 programs in the nation, yeah, you got a shot to be a power conference. Until that happens. And the whole idea that the ACC dying is good for the Big 12 because they get to ransack it and loot its body for jewels. No, because all of a sudden, once the ACC is gone, like, you don't have that banter. You don't get to say, oh, well, we're better than the ACC, not quite to the Power 12. No, it's just going to be the Power 12 and you at that point. And what does that do? That creates more separation. Even if you grab the auto bid, say, from the ACC throughout this, the playoff committee says, okay, Big 12, we're going to give you a little stamp. You added Miami and Georgia Tech or whatever the case may be, and they give them 2 playoffs. Well, guess what? They're getting 1 more. The SEC and the Big 10, they're getting 2 more because they're going from 3 to 4. So now you've got 9, 10 SEC teams and, whatever. Oh, so you got your 2 Big 12 teams. Great. But it's just, and I'll stop there. I won't rub in the wounds too much. It's just like, quit. There's this thing that Big 12 people want to do to crap on the ACC as if, and there was a meme, I think we talked about it on the show when it happened. I got into a big thing on Twitter. It's like, here's the 3 hot chicks. Here's the Big 12, the SEC, and Big 10. And here's the fat, ugly chick at the end, the ACC. Like, that's just, you're down there with us. Okay. You're ugly. You're just as ugly, but you just have like ankle weights on or whatever the case may be. You're with us. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not like, I want to get out of the ACC. I really do. But still, even when you take a zoomed out view and you take out FSU and Clemson, NC State, Miami, there's 3 or 4 teams. If you look right now in the top 20 of recruiting, there's 5 ACC teams, not a single Big 12 team. So it's like a lot of conjecture, a lot of like teams beating each other and raising that. It's like, the TV product and whether it's a cool conference or not, that's removed from being a power conference or competing for national championships. Maybe I'm a hater, but just how I see it. I'm going to have a real problem with FSU's administration if that's, what they end up doing. We're going to go be the kings of the new G5 over there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see that being part of the plan at all whatsoever. So
you've got no interest. If the money was, I can't imagine it's going to be comparable, but if it was a large leap with Florida State and Clemson from what the ACC has going forward, and it got the Big 12 within some kind of range of the SEC and the Big 10, it doesn't interest you at all to go over to that conference and hopefully dominate?
Here's the thing. No, absolutely not. But here's why. Because all you're doing is the same thing you did in 2010 through 2012 when you signed this thing. Okay, somehow adding Florida State and Clemson and it being a year later than the Big 10 deal and 2 years later than the SEC deal or vice versa, you may get close, but the Big 10 and the SEC are going to sign 3 more deals in the next decade. And ESPN will never up your stuff. So by 2030, the SEC and the Big 10 are going to be making $120 million, and you're going to be sitting there at $80 million in the Big 12 saying, oh my God, here we are. We're back to square one. It's just, it matters who you play every week. All that stuff matters. If you were going to do that, you might as well go independent and schedule, just Alabama, Texas, Ohio State out of conference the whole way through, and play in the Sun Belt. Who is the Big 12? The bottom half of it is made up of Sun Belt and AAC teams. I just don't. Yeah, but yeah, that's a problem with that, getting the money close. There was a time when Texas and Oklahoma were in the league, back in 2012 through 2015, that was a rumor. Now, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida State, Clemson, then you've got a legit, whatever you want to call it, power competitor. But every time one of these dominoes has fallen, it has went to the Big 10 or the SEC, and it's reached a point now to where it's just a different thing. It's just, I don't know, we can't call it group of. I like to call it the relegation league, whatever's left. Maybe you have the ACC and the Big 12, but it's going to reach a point to, just like the group of, just like minor league, you're going to get to a level in AAA where you're going to get called up, whether it's the player or whether it's the team that sells 30,000 tickets and they're a minor league team every year. They're going to be the first ones with a shot for expansion. It's going to be that management group. So that's how I look at it.
Florida State to the Big 12.
Maybe in 2012. It sounded sexy back then. Not so much in 2024.
No, it doesn't. And even if they had somebody coming with them, they would need a whole lot more to come with them. Even if they had
Notre Dame is the only other, that's the only other thing out there.
Well, I was thinking Miami and North Carolina, along with Clemson, and I guess a fourth team to make it 20, possibly. Just posted a comment from somebody in the chat that says Ross Dellinger is reporting that Clemson and Florida State are in talks with the Big 12.
Yeah, he might have been the one that, got it out there. It was originally all 7 of them. The later reports, the latest of it has been mainly the 5 of the 7. Now, am I going to sit here and say that Florida State and Clemson haven't spoken with people from the Big 12? They would be stupid not to do due diligence there. But yeah.
Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. We talk Florida State football with all of you each and every week. But if you want the daily dose, you go to the Renegade Report. It's right here on YouTube with George. We also enjoy and appreciate Chris. James was here, Spear Addicts, and Den Media Group. What's going on at the Renegade Report?
Man, we have been busy. So we got the Renegade Roast on Mondays. You guys can always check that out. That's Finn Santee and Tiny Hat CEO. Yesterday, of course, we got Max Redman commitment, so we reacted to that live. We had Clay Fink and our good friend James on with us. We talked about it earlier. We're going to have Doug Rohan this Friday to discuss all the latest with the lawsuit and conference realignment and a bunch of big surprises. We've got some pretty cool guests and pretty high up on the ladder guests that people might not think we'll be able to get coming through in the next couple of weeks. So nice. Big stuff. We just hit 2,500 subscribers. So trying to get to 3,000. I'll get over there and like and sub. We really appreciate you guys.
ACC kickoff is coming up in a couple weeks. Some people call it media days. So not the kickoff of the season, folks. Media days coming up in a couple weeks. DJ Huiondele had made a comment this week that he is not going to ACC kickoff because, and I thought this was a classy move by him, says that Florida State obviously won a championship last year, and some of those players that earned the championship should be the ones going to ACC kickoff. He's been there twice with Clemson. No reason for him to show up. And as of just a few minutes ago, they had yet to announce who was going for all the teams.
Yeah, man, you don't get any classier than that post. It really, like, I don't know if you'd call it viral, but it definitely in the college football world, that thing, it really traveled. A lot of people appreciated that. It just goes to show the leader that he is, you know. It shows the ability to be able to come in as a transfer, you know, as a 1 year. That's the most you're going to get, to come in and win over his teammates, and all the reports you've heard of kind of how high his character. That just goes to show that. Play devil's advocate. Maybe he just didn't want to deal with the BS questions and everything else.
He's done it twice.
And he's got the best PR agent in the world. Regardless, that's all part of being QB1. And we've had quarterbacks in the past that were a little bit more immature and, you know, would jump up on a table and scream a popular meme and stuff like that. So we've seen both the sides of the coin at FSU. So really appreciate it, and just get more and more excited about DJU the closer and closer we get to the season. I imagine Patrick Payton will probably be one of those guys to go for us. Maybe a Darius Washington, something like that. There's some seniors that have been on this team from the very beginning of the climb and even before that deserve to go out there. So very classy move by DJU, and I'm glad he doesn't have to listen to the BS from any media that might sneak in there.
I know we went through the EA Sports, the EA 25 rankings. Did we go through Phil Steele's? I wanted to get your take on. Did we do that last week?
We talked about it. We flipped through the magazine.
Well, I think we went through the offense. We went through the offense. Yeah, we went through the offense. Let me hit you with the defense.
Hit me with them.
All right. So he ranks a zillion teams. He goes up to like 70.
Of all the people, and like, you get really caught up, and James hit on it, like, some, like, not to brag, but like, I don't care who you are, some of the best national reporters in the nation can't report on Florida State as good as I can, just because that's what I do 24/7. Phil Steele, of all the people, like, to cover all 133 FBS teams or whatever it is, like, he does an amazing job of, like, getting on the phone, really spending whether it's 12 hours each team, 6 hours each team, whatever the case may be. So whether or not I disagree with any of these, don't take it as hate. Phil Steele been around forever, and that book is really a college football addict's dream. Sorry to interrupt you there.
And folks, be tuned in to the notifications over on the main channel. We will have Phil Steele on here in the next couple of weeks. Don't have any time pinned down yet, but we will have him on. He has promised me. Okay. So here we go to the defensive line. Just to put it in perspective, top 5 in the nation: Ohio State, Penn State, Utah, Michigan, Nebraska. Elsewhere in the ACC, Miami 12, Florida State 15. 15 in the nation defensive line.
You know, it's hard because we don't have a ton of returning production. There's quite a bit of upside with guys like Gerald Jackson, who didn't play last year, Marvin Jones Jr., a situation like a guy like Jermaine Johnson. He only came in here with a handful of sacks that ended up being a first round pick. You could have a similar situation there. So no, 15th, not too much of a complaint. I think by the end of the year, Florida State will have a top 10 defensive line, but there's quite a bit of projection and evaluation. One of those things that comes from being a Florida State person that watches it and has been watching it with a fine tooth comb over the past couple of years. It could be wrong. Maybe the streak runs out, but when you look at the evolution of the guys they brought in the offseason, this class of defensive linemen looks like it could be the best one yet.
Linebacker, top 5 in the nation. Iowa number 1, Oklahoma 2, Georgia 3, Texas 4, Oklahoma State 5. Clemson from the ACC at 8, SMU at 10. Then we've got Miami at 15. We have Virginia Tech at 28. We have Florida State at 40.
Florida State at 40. Well, we run a 4-2-5, so like linebacker isn't our thing. There's a whole position or two that doesn't even exist that a lot of those teams have. The 2 linebackers that we do have on the field, we've got DJ Lundy coming back, and that second spot is kind of up for grabs there. Cam Riley, an early favorite from Auburn to fill that spot. 40's tough. We'll see how it goes. But again, when you're somebody that has to look through all these different teams, I guess it's fair.
Defensive back. Ohio State number 1, Oklahoma 2, Georgia 3, Clemson 4, Iowa 5, Notre Dame 6, Florida State 7.
I'd probably flop us in Clemson, if I'm being honest. But I was going to be pissed. We were going to have problems if Florida State wasn't in the top 10 on this one. But we'll see. I think Clemson losing Nate Wiggins and Florida State having Azaria Thomas and bringing in the star-studded class they brought in this past year. I think you're going to see DBU start to rise up over that Clemson squad, who's kind of taken over the past 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it is, since Florida State went down in the tube. So we'll see there. I think Florida State gets back in the top 5 with DB unit by the end of the year.
Special teams, which on one hand I would think would be extremely difficult to evaluate because it's kind of it's a turnstile when it comes to coverage units and return units, because usually unless you're a program player, you're a special teams guy one year and you shouldn't be on special teams the next year. However, punters and kickers are pretty easy to evaluate. Their stats are pretty accurate. If the guys that kick the field goals, all you have to do is look at the percentage and the distance, and it tells you pretty much what you need to know. Same thing with a punter to a certain degree. So if those guys are coming back, then you've got something to go on. Bama 1, Texas 2, Georgia 3, Auburn 4, Michigan 5, Florida State 13.
I'd put us in the top 10 on that one. I'm imagining when he's looking at special team, he's looking at recruiting rankings, especially going over kind of the top 3 there to go to your notion of how talented is your freshman and sophomore class. That's going to tell you a lot about how talented your special teams are, because you're not going to have your starting this, starting that, and on special teams. But that's something that sets Mike Norvell apart. That doesn't even cross his mind. Like, if there's a guy with an injured ankle or something, obviously that's limited. You're not going to have him back there. But you will see game changers back there at the punt return and at the kick return at gunner and things of that nature. And special teams, they've been great. They've been great since he's been here. They had the one issue with kicker. There was that 2022 when Fitzgerald decided to go from a 2-step drop to a 3-step drop, or a 3-step drop to a 2-step drop. Got that fixed by the end of that year. Last year was great. Didn't do a ton of field goal kicking, but I believe had a pretty good over 75%, if I'm not mistaken. So I expect that special teams unit again to be in the top 10, as Florida State is far and away the most just raw talent when you look at, freshman, sophomore, blue chip percentage and all those things. So also adding Jalen Lucas to handle those kick returns and punt returns possibly. Look for Florida State special teams to be a difference maker this year. We've always been good at blocking punts and things like that as well.
We've got a big night in store here at the Voice of College Football, so we're leading off right here as we do every Wednesday night, 6 Eastern, so making an appointment. And for those of you who are just joining us, keep in mind with our Twitter crowd bringing us to about 240 on the line that you probably missed some of this. So certainly go back and watch the rest that you missed with George and with James. Renegade Report every day. Back here for Florida State Live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. But we've got a Miami show coming up at 7 Eastern, Miami channel. We've got a Texas-Michigan breakdown They're doing that on the Michigan channel. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you got the networks getting to the point, folks. We got overlapping shows. And then at 8:30 Eastern time, we get the deep dive with Tony Altamore. We're matching Ohio State versus Michigan. I am expecting fist fights in the chat for sure.
Gotta love it, man. It's a good thing. It's a blessing to be busy. We're up to 4 shows a week. I'm not looking forward to when they start overlapping, but it's not the just kind of game and pity pat that people think Mark's the man. I don't see how he does it with all these different shows and teams and stuff. It's hard enough with 4 people and 1 team for me.
We just do our best. Just don't look for our mistakes. We try to cover those up. But on another front, we've also relaunched our X page. So that's the official account of the Voice of College Football. My personal stuff's on another page. We'll get to that some other time. But you'll be able to find me in my personal posts. But right there, you got the official Voice of College Football relaunch. So you're going to see tons of rankings and ratings on our new X page. George, we appreciate you making this happen, man.
Absolutely, man. Sorry I was a little bit late this morning, but
No worries.
this afternoon. But yeah, got to get here on a Wednesday, man. We got to talk some FSU football. Let the folks know.
So one more time, George. When is the next show?
So our next show will be Friday, 7 Eastern, with Doug Rohan, Jen Santee, Deshaun Adams, and myself.
There we go. The Renegade Report, 7 Eastern Friday. See you back here next Wednesday. George, you have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. See y'all Friday and right back here Wednesday, 6 Eastern.